Hi, welcome to Christine's Corner. I'm Christine, and my guest tonight is Jean Kelly. She's a retired librarian from the Plainville Library, and she has come again. If you've watched my show, she does an excellent job at reading some books. She's going to read, the author is Katherine Gibson. So sit around and get your brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Chris. It's wonderful to be on your show again. It's a truly great show. And tonight we're going to be once again exploring Katherine Gibson's wonderful books. And we have two this evening, and the first one is called Sophie, Through Sophie's Eyes. In a small town, not too far from here, lived a girl named Sophie. She was like most other girls her age, except she could not hear or speak. Sophie was deaf. To communicate, she would read people's lips and speak with her hands using sign language. Sophie loved to draw pictures, read fairy tales, and most of all, she loved to dance. One of Sophie's favorite things to do was to watch people dance on television. I like to do that sometimes, don't you? She would look for the movies that had dancing in them and pretend she was one of the dancers. Once Sophie went to a beautiful wedding and was fascinated by all the people spinning and twirling on the dance floor. She watched as the ladies were spun around in their pretty dresses and high-heeled shoes. She was in awe of their gentle and graceful manners. While everyone was dancing, Sophie found herself feeling the vibrations of the music coming through the dance floor. She too was swaying and dancing just as the other guests were. Sophie's mum also loved to dance. The two of them would dance together for hours. They would move the furniture around and turn the living room into a dance area. One day, Sophie's mum decided to surprise Sophie with a little dance area in her bedroom. When Sophie came home that day, she was so surprised. She never could have imagined having her own dance studio. The only thing that was missing was other dancers to dance with. The next day, Sophie went to school with a big smile on her face. She still couldn't believe she had her very own dance studio. As she sat down at her desk, the teacher passed out a flyer to the class. The flyer was from the local dance studio. They were offering dance lessons to the students at her school. Sophie was so excited. She couldn't wait to share the news with her mother. While on the bus traveling home, Sophie started daydreaming about taking dance lessons at the dance studio. When the bus stopped in front of Sophie's house, she leapt off the bus and went running inside. She ran right to her mum and handed her the flyer. Sophie quickly signed, "Can I take the lessons? Can I?" At first, her mum was worried and sighed. The girls that take dance lessons can hear the music. They can listen for the teacher's instructions. It might be too hard for you. Sophie signed back, "Mum, I could watch the teacher and follow. I don't need to hear the music. I can feel it." Her mum smiled and signed back, "Okay, we can try it." Sophie jumped up and down and signed to her mum, "Thank you, thank you." The next day after school, Sophie's mum took her to the dance studio. As Sophie entered, she stopped and looked all around the room. The dance room was just as she had imagined. It was a large room with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and a wooden ballet bar that went down the entire side of the wall. The dance teacher went over to greet them. Sophie signed, "Hello, my name is Sophie. I'm excited to take dance lessons." The teacher signed back, "Hello, Sophie. My name is Miss Helen. I am glad you're excited to take dance lessons. We will have lots of fun." Sophie and her mum were happily surprised that Miss Helen knew sign language. It was time for the dance lesson to begin. Miss Helen brought Sophie to the center of the room and introduced her to the class. Sophie signed to the girls, "Hello, my name is Sophie." The girls looked puzzled as Sophie used the sign language to greet them. When the class started, Miss Helen signed to Sophie to line up with the other girls at the ballet bar. While the girls were in line, they whispered to one another, covering their mouths so that Sophie couldn't hear or read their lips. Sophie knew they were whispering about her. She tried to be brave, but tears began to slowly run down her cheeks. Miss Helen noticed Sophie was upset. She signed to Sophie, "Are you okay? Do you want to stop for the day?" Sophie dried her tears and signed back to Miss Helen, "I will be okay. I want to dance." Miss Helen noticed the girls were not being that nice to Sophie. When class ended for the day, Sophie quickly grabbed her stuff and left. Miss Helen asked the other girls to stay. She told the girls to start stretching and she would be right back. She went to her office and returned shortly with a bag of cotton. She had all the girls take a piece of cotton and put it in their ears. Miss Helen told the girls they would be dancing without music, just like Sophie. Miss Helen signaled the girls to line up in the center of the room. She told them that they could not rely on their ears to listen to the music or instruction. They had to use their other senses and feel the rhythm of the movements. Miss Helen used her hand movements and body language to guide the girls. The girls began to stumble all over one another as they tried to keep their eyes focused on Miss Helen. They were tired and out of breath as they tried to find the rhythm. They did not realize how difficult it was to dance without hearing the music. When Sophie got home, her mom asked, "How was dance class?" Sophie told her mom how the girls treated her, and she began to cry. She signed to her mom, "The girls think because I'm deaf, I can't dance." Her mom replied as she said softly, wiping the tears away from her face, "Oh, Sophie, you are a wonderful dancer. Don't worry about what the other girls think. Not being able to hear is only a part of who you are. You have a special gift that allows you to use dancing as a way to express yourself. You should celebrate who you are. I do. The next day, Sophie decided to walk to dance class. She knew she could show the girls that she was a good dancer. As she was walking, it started to rain. The rain was like music to Sophie. She looked up and smiled as the raindrops tiptoed on her face. Sophie leaped and splashed through the puddles all the way to dance class. When Sophie arrived at the dance studio, she quickly changed from her wet shoes to her ballet slippers. While stretching for class, Sophie noticed that the other girls were smiling at her. One of them even waved and mentioned for her to come down next to her at the wooden bar. Miss Helen began the class, and everyone watched for instructions. Sophie noticed that Miss Helen did not turn the music on. She also noticed that Miss Helen did not give any verbal instructions. She was only using her body movements and hand signals. It put a smile on Sophie's face when she realized that the girls were learning to dance through her eyes. They were seeing what it was like for her every day. As the weeks went by, the girls are prepared for their solo performances. Sophie practiced and practiced. It was finally Sophie's day to do her performance. She thought to herself, I can do this. I love to dance. I am ready. Sophie was nervous yet excited. She slowly walked to the center of the room and saw everyone's eyes on her. She got into a dance position, took a deep breath, and waited to feel the music. And then she danced and danced and danced. The girls watched in awe. They started whispering again, but this time they did not cover their mouths. They were all saying that Sophie was beautiful. She was graceful. She was a ballerina. At the end of Sophie's dance, she glanced over to the other dancers to see their reaction. She saw smiles on their faces. As they clapped and cheered for her, Sophie could not have been happier. As she curtsied, the dancers ran to the center of the room to join her. They all formed a circle, holding each other's hands, and danced together. Everyone realized that you do not need to be able to hear the music to be a great dancer. The girls curtsied goodbye to Miss Helen, hugged each other, and left class with a great lesson learned. That night, as Sophie's mum tucked her into bed, Sophie told her mum how proud she felt about her performance and how she loved her dance class. The girls were so happy for me, Sophie sighed. As her mum sat on the side of the bed, she brushed her hand through Sophie's hair and then signed, I'm so proud of you. I know the girls would see your gift to dance. As her mum got up from the side of the bed, Sophie signed to her, I love you. Wasn't that great that Sophie persevered and really became a great dancer? Now, another great book by Katherine Gibson is Gracie. It's called Gracie Saves the Day. And we'll see in this book what happens to Gracie. And it says on the front, dedicated, this book is dedicated to Alyssa and Kylie Zawinski, the kindest and coolest girls I know. This is the author that wrote this. Penelope Taylor was the meanest, crankiest girl in the whole school. She thought she was perfect. She wore perfect dresses. Her nails were perfectly done. And she always wore a perfect bow in her hair. Poor Gracie, wearing that dirty baseball shirt again, Penelope snickered. When are you going to dress and act like a girl? Gracie and her best friend, Joey, kept walking out of school towards the bus stop, and Joey shook his head. I know you get along with just about everybody, but you have to admit, Gracie, it's even hard for you to get along with Penelope Taylor, he muttered. Gracie gave him a little smile. Besides, Joey continued, you love sports and you're good at them. You can hit, kick, and throw things better than most of us guys. Gracie's smile stretched into a grin. And most of all, I love baseball, she said. Yeah, and you're so good. Us guys picked you the first for our team, Joey said. And Gracie slapped a high five just as they heard their friend Mary call from the school steps. Mary ran towards them, waving a piece of paper. You guys, check this out. She shouted. Several of their friends heard her and gathered around. Mary handed her the paper to Gracie. Please do this with me. I can't do it without you. But before Gracie could read what it said, Penelope snatched it out of her hand. A dance contest. Oh, how wonderful. She twirled around the crowd, holding the paper in the air. Let me see it, Gracie said. Penelope threw it at her. Don't bother. This is for girls only. Hey, Gracie is a girl, said Mary. Oh, she is? Penelope looked at Gracie up and down. Then why does she always dress and act like a boy? Just then, Principal Goldsmith walked towards them, and everyone scattered except Gracie. Gracie just stood there. Are you okay, Gracie? Principal Goldsmith asked. I'm fine, hiding her tears. When Gracie arrived home, she stormed into her house, dropped her backpack on the kitchen floor, slid down the wall, and just sat there. Her mum joined Gracie on the floor. How was your day? Mary really wants me to enter this school dance contest with her, but I'm not a dancer, she said. And besides, I didn't have anything to wear. Why don't you do it just for fun? Mum asked, and reached for her hand to help her off the floor. Come on, I have an idea that might help you make up your mind. Gracie had never been in a store like the ballet boutique. She felt uncomfortable, even when Miss Lulu smiled at them from behind the counter. "How may I help you?" she asked. "We're looking for an outfit for a school dance contest," Mum replied. Miss Lulu showed them every dress in the store, but nothing seemed right. Then Gracie peeked into a white box on the counter shaped like a tutu. She opened it and saw the most beautiful tutu she had ever seen. Her eyes lit up. Maybe the dressing up won't be so bad. This tutu is a winner. Miss Lulu pointed to the yellow tag hanging from it. "Oh, goodness, I'm sorry," she said, "but this tutu is reserved for someone else. I'm actually expecting her in now." Grace's heart sank. The bell across the door chimed, and Miss Lulu took the tutu from the hanger. Gracie didn't want to see the lucky girl who owned the tutu. She tugged on Mum's sleeve. "Let's go," she whispered. "Do you like my dress?" a familiar voice asked. Gracie could only watch while Penelope held the tutu under her chin and swayed this way and that and gazed at her perfect reflection in the mirror with the light bouncing off the sparkly dress. Of course, it was the perfect dress for Penelope. "With this, I'm sure to win first prize," Penelope said. She spun in a pretty pirouette. Driving home, Mum said, "It's not what a dancer wears, but how she feels inside that makes her a great dancer." Gracie frowned. "I don't care about all this stuff," she grumbled. "Really? Then why are you entering the contest?" Mum asked. "Because of that girl Penelope. She's always telling me how I look and act like a boy. Plus, Mary really wants me to dance with her." "Gracie, don't change who you are for Penelope or anyone else," Mum said. "How about dancing for fun instead?" That night in bed, Gracie thought about what her mum had said. She decided, costume or no costume, she was going to be herself and try her best and have fun. We have a few pages left in this book, so I would like to sort of go down to the end of the book and we can hear what happens, and next time I would love to read you the whole story. The music began and the curtain opened. One by one, each girl went out and danced her very best. The announcer then called for Gracie. Her song started to play. She ran onto the stage, dressed in her baseball cap, jersey and shorts, and danced her routine, just this way Mary had taught her. Everyone was surprised and confused, but Penelope laughed and pointed as she danced. Gracie didn't care. She was having fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Christine's Corner. That was Jean Kelly, retired librarian for the Plainville Library. She did a great job on Catherine Gibson's books. And tune in next time, or maybe you can read that same book from start from finish. Thank you for tuning in. See you again next time.